All right, so in this video, we're going to very briefly go through the basics of what semester one was about. In semester one, we pretty much went through three different units, and they kind of tied together a little bit. But it's important to remember those topics as we go into semester two, because we just keep on building from what we've already done. So, unit one, that was really all just about like the basics. It was kind of the stuff that you kind of should have known from like previous classes or other things coming in, and hopefully it was just like a review coming into this class. So we did questions such as like just adding, subtracting, like positives and negatives, such as like 10 plus a negative 5, making sure you guys knew that like when you have these back-to-back signs, like, what do you actually do with those? That was the key, right? And in this specific question, obviously a positive and negative, the negative is what wins. And this question is really just saying 10 minus 5, which is just 5, okay? So we had these questions where the directions were just simplify. And it was to just um, make sure you know how to use the symbols correctly. We also did questions where it was kind of like a substitution question. So I'll give you something like this, where it's like negative 2x plus 3y, and then the directions are like substitute, and then they tell you like what x and y are. So substitute for x equals 5 and y equals 4, just as an example. And essentially all you got to do there is you replace the variables with parentheses, and you plug in the number in the appropriate position. So x is 5, so the 5 goes there, and then y is 4, so the 4 goes there. And then you just simplify that, okay? So that was the difference between those questions. Simplify versus substitute. And there was a couple of also just basic knowledge questions. Like you should be confident enough in knowing how to distribute a number. So something like this, 3 times 2x squared plus 3x minus 5. Okay, and the directions are just distribute. Okay, and the idea here is that distribution is just multiplication. And the idea is that you take that outside number and you have to multiply it to every single piece on the inside. Okay, so our final answer here would be the first one, 2 times, or 3 times 2x, 6x squared. Second one, 3 times 3x gives you 9x. And the last one, 3 times negative 5, negative 15. And that's where you would stop, right? None of these three questions had an equal sign in them to start off with. So none of them were solving. It was just kind of simplifying or doing one very basic step. That's kind of what Unit 1 was about. Now, I'm going very quickly because this should be just a recap. But if at any point if you need to pause and go back, feel free to do that as well. It's nice about doing pre-recorded notes. Okay. Moving on to Unit 2. Unit 2 is where we spent most of our time in first semester. So Unit 2, this is the one that you should be like the most comfortable with. Okay, and this was the equations unit. Okay, if there's one skill from last semester that you have to know going into this semester, is you have to know how and be comfortable with solving an equation. Now, that does not mean just open up PhotoMath and scan it and tell me what the answer is. I need to see the steps, right? That's a key part of solving an equation. So let's just do one of these examples. This one kind of has a little bit of everything involved in it. So we're going to write down negative 9x plus 18 equals 4 times x minus 15. Has a little bit of everything in there. So if you can do that, then that's a good sign that you remember stuff from first semester. So going through it, the first thing that should stand out is that distribution, right? So we should start off by distributing this 4, right? So 4 times x, 4x. 4 times negative 15 is negative 60. And use a calculator if you need to. That's perfectly fine. And then if you don't use something, like we didn't use the entire left side yet, so just bring that straight down. Okay. Then the next thing is that we have x's on both sides of our equation, so we need to get them to one side. It doesn't matter which one you move, you have the choice, right? So you can either move this negative 9x or you can move this 4x. Okay, it really doesn't matter which one you choose, but you gotta choose one. My preference is always to move the smaller one. So if I was doing this question, I would move that 9x, right? It's negative 9x, so I would add 9x to the other side. But notice I'm showing the steps, right? This is something that photomath does not do. It does not show their work. It just goes one line to the next line to the next line, but it doesn't actually show what's going on. There was a lot of students last semester that lost points because they were not showing their steps, which is almost a dead giveaway that you just kind of scanned it and copied down what your phone said. Okay, make sure you guys are showing the steps along the way. Okay, so these cancel each other out. Bring down that 18. And then the x's can be combined. So 4x and 9x make 13x. And we can bring down that 60. Now we're down to a two-step equation. We move the x's to the right-hand side, so all the other numbers have to go to the left-hand side. So the next thing will be to get rid of that 60. Again, it's negative, so we can add it to the other side. We always do opposites. Okay, leftovers, those are gone. I can extend this line a little bit. I still have that 13x. And on the left side, 18 plus 60 gives you 78. And now the last step is to get rid of that 13. Remember, whenever they're attached like that, you get rid of it by dividing it. Okay? And again, use calculators, especially if you don't know the answer right off the top of your head. Right? Use a calculator when the numbers are larger. So 78 divided by 13, and you should get 6. Okay? So this one equation had a little bit of everything that we covered in the equation unit. Had a distribution, has variables on both sides, and so forth. But the key is all the stuff I did in purple, that's all stuff that photomath does not show you. Okay, it's how you are showing your steps. So make sure you guys are doing that even as we go into semester 2. Okay, so that's what unit 2 is about. And then unit 3, let me go and scroll down one more time. Unit 3 wasn't too different from what Unit 2 is about. Okay, Unit 3, we just introduced the idea of a inequality. Okay, those were the symbols like less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. And if you remember those, they behave exactly the same way as an equation with the extra rule. I'll put a little star. The extra rule, or is if you divide by a negative number or multiply by a negative number to both sides, you have to flip your sign. Okay, so let's say divide by negative. Okay, means you must flip your sign. Okay. Other than that, it's the exact same thing as an equation. We did a little bit about the graphing and stuff too, but the main thing was making sure you guys knew the extra rule. So as a quick example for that one, let's go with 50 is less than or equal to 8 minus 6x. Okay? And again, we approach this the same way. We're going to get the x by itself on one side and everything else to the other side. So because there's only x's on the right-hand side, like there's only that negative 6x, it makes sense to move the 8 over to the left. So let's go ahead and do that. It's positive 8, so let's subtract it to the other side. Okay, leftovers. We have negative 6x on the left, on the right, sorry. The symbol hasn't changed yet. I subtracted, but I didn't divide by negative, so I'm still good. And then 50 minus 8 gives you 42. And then now we have to get rid of that negative 6, right? So we can divide it to the other side. And now we just activated our new rule. We divided by a negative number. So those cancel. And because we divided by a negative number, our symbol has to flip around. So now it's going this way. Okay, so flip. And then 42 divided by negative 6 is what gives you negative 7. And that's an acceptable answer. Now, while this is perfectly okay, this can be a little bit confusing if you're trying to graph. Sometimes it's easier with inequalities to make sure that the x is always on the left-hand side. Okay, so you can always rearrange this. Just make sure when you turn it around, you turn everything back around. So this would also be an acceptable answer. Move the x over here, means you gotta flip the symbol again, and the negative 7 over here. Okay, these two things mean the exact same thing. But this bottom one makes it very easy to graph. Right, on a number line, put some numbers in there. Let's say negative 7 is here. This would be negative 6, negative 5, negative 8, negative 9. Or if it has that bar, it's a closed circle. Right, so at negative 7, it's a closed dot. If it doesn't have the bar, it's like this, you put an open dot, like a circle on there. And this is saying less than, so it's going to the left. That would be the correct graph. Okay, that was essentially what Unit 3 was about. Almost similar, very similar to Unit 2. We didn't do too much. All right. So that's basically what we covered in semester 1, just condensed into about a 12-minute video. Okay, so these are the kind of things we want to make sure you remember as we go into semester 2.